Hello, and welcome. You're watching Art Adventures. This is part 2 of episode 1 with artist-director Joe Reorda and the Fox West Theater Exploration, guided by Chris Smith. I'm Amanda, and our first season takes place in Trinidad, Colorado.
The arts are very powerful, and so they can change lives, change your mind. Imagine if film had gotten into the wrong hands, where we'd be now, what we'd think was real. So in Trinidad, every single solitary school, no matter how remote, had a theater teacher, had a music teacher. I mean, it's the arts. That's why you have arts and sciences. Without the arts, the other's so boring you'll die. So you must have something for the mind. Trinidad was already cultural. It didn't need other people to come here. I mean, it's lucky people have come here, but it was already all here. And people really expected this to turn into something much grander, perhaps. And had Denver not become the capital, Trinidad was vying for the capital of the state of Colorado, which is an interesting shift just to think of how the state would have grown in the south and not in the north. I think it's a perfect place for the theater. I mean, it's just perfect. Because, there's nothing else to do unless you're into nature or the very few other things that you can do here. It's a perfect place to learn it as a craft, a skill. It takes all your time. You have to devote yourself to it, or you're no good at it. It's not something you can slap together. It's not something like, oh, I'm so talented, I can just make it. No. It's like being in a religious order and in athletics. It has a very athletic quality. The rigor of repeating to get better. Not, oh, it's so boring. It's very hard.
The Fox West Theater opened March 16th, 1908, here in Trinidad. Trinidad was a very growing town in the early 20th century. Coal and other industrial developments created a huge population. 20,000 or more people lived here. There's something very Old West about Trinidad. I spent most of my life on the East Coast, so I wasn't exactly sure what the Wild West looked like, and then I came to Trinidad. And there's such a very different feeling of community in that we all got this far. We all got over the Mississippi, we all got out here, and we're all hanging out here in the high desert. And it is a pretty harsh environment at times. Raton Pass is a defining part of Trinidad, in that Trinidad was on the Santa Fe Trail. If you chose to take the Cimarron route, you would end up in Trinidad the night before you had the most treacherous stretch ahead of you, and that is the Raton Pass, an elevation of over 4,000 feet between here and Raton, New Mexico. I love the community of Trinidad. Only a vibrant community would need a theater like this. So I like to think about what this community looked like in 1908, and I love to think about what it is today and is becoming in the months and years to come.
This theater is about to go through a transformation.
Right.
It's received a very large grant from the state of Colorado, and they're going to redo the sound and all of the lights, and we're going to have exceptionally good video projection as well. So it's a little nervous because I can tell it doesn't know. We have not sat down and decided the future of this building. I mean, things keep happening, but no one's literally sat down and said, this is where we're going. But what we are doing is we're going to create a theater program. And that's a hard thing to do because you need money, you need scholarship money, you need to attract people. And acting is just not as popular as it used to be. There aren't in every class. I don't have an actor in every class like I used to, which is an interesting shift, and I wonder why that's happened.
Maybe social media is easier.
Because now it's easier because you can become a TikTok star, a Snapchat star, you're a YouTube. Sure, but I watched a lot of that stuff and those people could use an acting class. I mean, they're funny, but they're not actors. And they can't just, you're not going to go from being a TikTok star to a major motion picture in Hollywood. You may get a bit part because you're cute or whatever,
and
but
it grows from there, right?
You're not an actor.
YouTube stars are making feature films that are ending up in the theaters that I've seen. One of them is called...
They're making films.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not just trying to be a YouTube star or I play a video game or I have crazy ideas. My favorite is all the people that made money just from makeup. I mean, those are some real actors. I mean, they make you want to watch the progression of that makeup. It's not just the phenomenon. They're engaging people. They have personalities. You just can't be anybody and go in front of that camera and expect it to work. I mean, it's not a miracle worker. I used to love when all this software came out, like, oh, I have all the newest software for editing. Well, you don't know how to make a movie, so who cares if you have editing software? Oh, I got every piece of equipment to make music. Oh, well, you still can't make music. You're not a musician. It's not the equipment. I mean, it's certainly not the building.
Cattle rancher and local businessman Ed West put up the money for the West Theater. According to the Chronicle News at the time, cost $125,000 to build. It contains 2 million bricks, all of which were produced at the Trinidad Brickworks. Trinidad is known for its brick-lined streets with bricks that are stamped Trinidad. The ones in this building are not that. Building the Fox West Theater drew from materials both here in Trinidad and imported from far away. This marble represents the kick plate that was used in both this retail bay and the lobby and the other retail bay. It's incredible looking, and it lined the offices here where we're sitting. Okay, I'm going to tell you about the space we're in right now. The West Theater was designed to be a multidisciplinary space. The Rapp brothers here in Trinidad, I believe, took some cues from their brothers in Chicago. The Chicago Rapps were designing theaters, would go on to design theaters in the 20s and 30s, where you had the theater and then you had retail bays as well. We are sitting in one of the 2 retail bays here at the Fox West Theater. This retail bay was designed to be a saloon. You can tell from the way the marble floor is lined out and how this section of floor is all wood. This is where the bar was. And in fact, one can tell that the wood floor runs all the way to the front of the building, meaning one could sit anywhere at the bar, even right up in the front window to see who else was on Main Street. In 1916, Prohibition hit Colorado, and alcohol sales were outlawed. The management of the theater at the time decided to reconfigure this saloon into office space, which it has remained to be since. The partitions that divided this into office spaces and a storeroom here and a little office up there were removed a few months ago. You can still tell kind of where the bar was, and you can tell that there was one restroom for the patrons back here. And looking from the front of the building, you can tell where the main door was. The other retail bay here at the Fox West Theater was designed to be a drugstore, Hausman's Drugstore. Many of the early advertisements for the Fox West Theater said that you could get your tickets at Hausman's Drugstore. It was open a lot more than the theater was. And Hausman's Drugstore, you can also tell where the patrons were welcome and where the counters were, based on where the wood floors are. There is a trap door in Hausman's Drugstore that would have led to one of the parlors in the ballroom below grade. The lobbies here at the Fox West Theater are really unique. I would say there's even 3 of them. It was designed to have 2 lobbies, but now, just the way that additions have happened, I would say there are 3. There is the first lobby, which it's worth noting the W in a circle that you can faintly see behind the current paint job. That represents Ed West, because this was built as the West Theater. It would later be renamed the Fox West, then just the Fox, and now we've taken back the name from the early 1930s, the Fox West. The first lobby also contains the ticket booth, which I think was converted into a storage closet for cleaning supplies in maybe the 1950s or 60s.
Hello? Hello? Major Tom. Hands are all dusty and gross now.
The second lobby features the staircases that lead to the second balcony, known as the gallery. Those staircases were custom cast for this building. They are incredibly ornate. I've never seen anything like them. The staircases feature marble stairs. Those marble stairs were first covered over with carpet in 1925, and then again in the 1940s. We will be removing that carpeting as part of the master renovation in this building.
Currently in the lobby, hanging around, checking things out. The ballroom down there. Everyone gets weird vibes going down there. Second balcony.
The Fox West Theater has had a few problems throughout its history. One of them came in January 2017, when some vandals broke in and opened what was a fire hose connection in the first balcony. This created a moisture problem and a water problem. We were professionally dried out by ServPro of Pueblo. The process took almost 11 days and was some of the first big work that the theater had seen in many, many years. I'm proud to say that the building is structurally sound and we've recovered very well from what was a pretty traumatic experience for an old building. During that experience, we had someone here to test paint for lead content. A reasonable thing to do with any old building. So the fellow was here and scraping some paint off the walls here and off the walls there, and he scraped some paint. Remember, the walls were at that time still wet. And when he scraped the paint, some substance came pouring out from behind the bubbled up paint. It was wet. Was it cherry cola syrup or something else? Was it an old coat of paint? For some reason, the manager had asked to have been put there. We're not really sure. I went researching in the Chronicle News, the microfiche. The microfiche is available here at the Trinidad Library and has been an incredible resource in understanding the Fox West Theater. So I went looking around, hoping for a story that would help me understand what that was bubbling out of the wall. Well, I found a story, and it was not the story that matched that spot, but there was a shooting here in the early 1920s. And that actually took place out in front of the box office, where someone was across the street at Main and Animas and shooting at someone who was standing in front of the box office. And the person was shot, and the woman buying a ticket at the time, she thought she was shot, ran into the auditorium, caused a panic, and everybody ran. The man who was shot was said to have survived. The man who did the shooting was said to have run behind City Hall and was never found.
I was taken to a play every year of my life, all through my childhood, not to Denver, in Trinidad. In the old days, you had to do it in New York or Los Angeles, or you had to do it in London, and then it was legitimate. Or it came from those places, and then it was legitimate. But now, I mean, you can give a brilliant performance on that stage and be 16 years old, and no one can really explain how you did that. I mean, I saw young people do really brilliant work. Only because I teach at a college, the hardest thing is continuing to show the value of it. It doesn't make any money, and we do have to find the scholarship money, and you have to pay for all of it. But it's worth it. I mean, how do you prove the worth of it all? Well, the first play ever directed here, kids came to see it 5 nights. I didn't ask for anything. 5 nights in a row they saw a play.
And it was different every time, I bet.
And it was different every time. They knew it. Yeah.
Thank you for watching this episode of Art Adventures. If you would like to watch previous episodes, they're linked below. And if you would like to watch future episodes, you're in luck because they're on their way. I hope you're having fun and being smart and making some art.